Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Ladies Best Life podcast. It is episode number 45 and we have the second edition of the incredible Jen Rolwich coming in to talk to us all things to do with vision, leadership and performance. Now, Jen's first episode was episode number 41 and it absolutely blew up. People loved hearing Jen's story and I know there was so much relatability as well. So Jen, welcome back to the Ladies Best Life podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you for having me back. I've obviously not irritated everyone as much as I thought I would, that I've come back for a second time. I promise I'll try and keep it short and sweet today, but no promises. No guarantees.
No. We don't want that at all. And it's so good to have you back. And I genuinely think we're just going to have to keep these going because we've got so many topics that we want to talk about. And it's really nice. Like, obviously, I do the majority of these podcasts on my own. So it's really nice having company and someone who I can talk to about the stuff that just blows my mind. Now, we finished the last episode talking about what is the very first step for a woman who's listening to this to start to step into these transitions and these changes. And you touched on the fact that it's about repairing the relationship with yourself, starting to look after yourself and experiment with the things that you really want to do in life, not just doing the things that you feel like you should. So today, I want us to look into that a little bit more. So the woman who sat at home, who feels like she has to do, 10,000 steps a day and 3 liters of water and ridiculous amount of protein, all these things, these expectations. I want us to start to go down the routes that you believe that we can start to create change. That woman that's sat at home that maybe can't invest in herself with a coach, where can we go with it? What can we do? So
I think the challenging thing here is that I believe that for women particularly, there is often an expectation, not always an overt expectation, but some sort of expectation that we manage multiple different roles based solely on the fact that we're a woman. So we know that for many women who are parents, they will most likely be the primary carer, right? They're the preferred parent. They're the one who does the uniforms. They're the one who knows all of their kids' teachers' names. They're the ones who know that swimming's on this week, but it's off next week. They're the ones who plan the activities. They're the ones who are concerned with their child's development, right? So this isn't the case in all relationships, but we know that primarily women are more likely, just due to traditional gender roles, to be that preferred parent. So if you are a parent, what you have is not only, and this isn't anything to do with how supportive or unsupportive your partner is, right? Your partner can be the most supportive, as devoted a parent as you. It's just sometimes I find that from societal expectations that these things fall into the lap of responsibility for women. So and then the more children you have, the more responsible you are for multiple children's different needs and wants. Then you have that pressure and expectation again, even if it doesn't come from your partner, of the expectation of maintaining and nurturing a relationship, being a good partner, being there for them, considering them, their needs. They might be the breadwinner and be responsible for a really high pressure job. You might be the breadwinner and be responsible for your high pressure job on top of all these different things with the children. And even if you aren't the preferred parent, you're living with the guilt of the fact that you are a woman who has not been the primary caregiver for your children. And that people pass lots and lots of judgment when women do choose to have their partners be that primary caregiver as opposed to them. So you're dealing with all of that. Then you're dealing with, if you're a woman of my age-ish or older, you're dealing with what society told us was the right thing to be as a woman. So we have, have you ever seen people talk about people being a pick-me? So like my younger sister's generation will be like, oh, your generation, millennials are such pick-me's, right? But we were taught that you have to be different from the other girls. Don't be a girly girl, don't be like the other girls, right? Be different. All in aid of being desirable to men, right? We grew up, I said this in the last time we spoke, but we grew up looking at magazines and tabloids of women in small bodies being called grotesque on the beach, right? We grew up with our inspirational bodies being women who were ravaged with eating disorders, right? And were seriously unhealthy. I have lost count of the amount of times I've heard my friends quote Kate Moss and say nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, right? So this is what we were living with. This is what we were growing up around, right? And I think that the social media generation, it is different for them. They have a different kind of pressure, and a different kind of expectation, but we still fall victim to the pressures that come from social media. So we have all of that, and amongst the chaos of, oh, I think I should do some work on myself, right? And to do some work on ourselves means taking back some time from everyone else and their needs to spend on us and our needs. And immediately we decide that is selfish, because very often as women, we are encouraged into the roles that serve other people, right? We're encouraged into, have a successful career, but also have a very successful, healthy relationship, but also be a fantastic mother, and make sure you've got some hobbies on the side as well, and make sure you exercise and eat well because you need to look good, and make sure you're aging well. So go get Botox, go get filler, go get your hair done, go make sure you look good, right? So there's so many multiplying pressures that it does not shock me in the slightest that people say, I don't know where to fucking start. Yeah. Like, this is overwhelming. I don't know where to begin. So this is often the point that people will seek out a coach, because they're so overwhelmed by everything that's out there, the myths that perpetuate the fitness industry, and believe in some of those. If you're anything like me and you've done every diet and that has ever been created since the dawn of time, you are running on myths that have been told to you at various points in your life. So I think at the point that people decide that they want to make a change, how do you make a decision for yourself in an environment that is so stowed with overwhelming information? And I think for people, it's very much about, I think that sometimes we're not told, or it's not made clear to us that there is an alternative to the never-ending pressure that we face and we feel. And I think that a lot of the women that I speak to, 9 times out of 10, the reason that they found themselves in the place that they found themselves is not being able to keep up with this overwhelming sense of pressure. And this doesn't always look like direct pressure from a source. This can be a sense of pressure, and that sense of pressure comes from those expectations put on us by society, or those unspoken rules that kind of exist for us as women that make us stop and go, oh, I don't think I can do that. Do you know what I mean?
Love that. And it's so relatable when you say the sense of pressure, because it's like, and I was speaking to a client just earlier this morning, and I was like, you sound like you're under such pressure. She was like, no, I'm not. And I was like, do you feel like you're under quite a lot? Like, is there a lot of overwhelm going on at the minute? And that's that's the word that landed with her the most. It's like this, you're up in your head, you don't know what to do next. You're like, oh my God, I don't know which direction to go in. And what I believe is pressure is self-received a lot of the time. Like, sometimes you can have, peer pressure, but you could have a group of people doing things a certain way, but it's only your desire to conform that applies the pressure to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same with work pressure. Like, so many of the girls inside the coaching club are high achieving women, and they've got really, really high pressure careers, and they're like, oh, my boss just keeps giving me more and more and more. And I'm like, you have to put that boundary in place to say no. Yeah. Now, earlier we were talking about the kind of alternative ways to live your life, and you mentioned those, what was it, 6 ego?
The ego beliefs. Yeah. So
let's
go there. What happens, or what I watch happen quite a lot with everyone, this goes for all people, is that people will, so they'll come into a coaching program and they'll speak with you and they'll say, I really, really want to lose weight because I have a holiday coming up, and every year when I go on holiday, I feel shit about myself. I hate the way that I look. I want to go on holiday and feel confident in a bikini. I want to feel confident day to day. I just want to get my energy back, right? They'll say these kinds of things, and very often what they're doing is attaching a feeling to an outcome. So they believe that before they've joined your coaching program, they've already done all the thinking, right? And they've decided this is what I need, right? So you know yourself when someone comes on a call, they're either there to kind of fact find and they're still in research stage, or they've already made the decision before they've come on the call with you that you are for them, and it's really just a formality to get them in, right? And you often know those people when you first speak to them. So a lot of the time, when people join a coaching program, they think, brilliant, that's it. I'm in my new beginning. I've found the solution. I've found the thing that's going to work for me. And when I get to this size, then all of these things will come true for me, right? Then what happens is they get about 8 weeks in, they're going through a transitional state. So change is external and transition is internal. So although they're making the external changes, the person on the inside isn't catching up at the same rate. So when they look at themselves in the mirror 2 stone lighter, they still see that same person and they go, but I was supposed to feel different when I achieved this physical change, and it ain't guaranteed, right? Your external change will happen at the rate at which you adhere to a process, but your internal transition will take as long as it takes. So what happens is people maybe get 12 weeks in, they have physically changed, but they feel fucking volatile because they feel like that same person. They don't feel confident. These clothes are smaller, but they don't see it. You might hear people saying, I look in the mirror and I don't see any difference. People keep telling me that I've lost weight. My clothes are too big for me, but I can't see it, right? So they maybe get to the fat loss goal, which might have been fitting into a dress for a wedding, and they go to the wedding and they hate themselves as much as they did, and everyone's spending the whole day telling them how fabulous they look because we reward people for weight loss all the time, regardless of how they achieved the weight loss, whether it was healthy, unhealthy, whether it was due to illness, whether it was due to choice. In society, we commend people when they lose weight. So everyone tells them how fantastic they look. They're in that bikini that they've fantasized about. Every time they wanted to have a chocolate bar and told themselves, no, you can't have that, they fantasized about this moment, and the moment doesn't measure up, right? So what happens is one of two things. They either go further into the depths of restriction, or they self-sabotage and go back to the last place that they remember feeling comfortable. They get nostalgic about that time that they were actually uncomfortable and tell themselves that they were, and they self-sabotage and go back to that place and say, I'm back at square one. I'm starting again, right? Now, what's actually happening is an essential part of the change process, and that they're recognizing that the work that I have to do to feel good has to start from the inside out. Once I start building the relationship with myself and being the kind of person who cares for and respects my body, it becomes a lot easier to make decisions for myself that are in line with that. If you want to be someone who feels confident, who loves the way that you look, who cares for your body, who is what you perceive to be healthy, you have to start treating yourself as that person now, not in 5 stone time. Because if you don't start treating yourself as that person now, even when you get to that place at 5 stone time, I would bet you my house, you will not feel the way that you think that you're going to feel. So what happens when people make these decisions is they make them based from a place of ego. So there's a fantastic book called The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer talks about the ego beliefs. And he says that it is actually impossible to access true intention when you're making decisions based from a place of ego. When you access true intention, you unlock the power of being guided by what he calls your infinite self. So this is your highest self, your highest performing self. This is the vision-based person that trusts your instinct, can easily say no to things because you know that's not for me. Even if it's a great opportunity, you go, nah, it's not for me. That's not making me happy. You're values-based, values-driven, and you're operating from a place of true intention. What we watch happen quite a lot is people make these decisions based from ego. So one of the biggest ego beliefs I see is I am what I have, right? People will apply this, and this specifically in social media, and it irks me, is people will display success via the means of their wealth, right? So how do people in social media let you know that they're successful? They show you what they've got, right? And when they show you what they've got, that's them letting you know I am successful because I am what I have. So they determine success based on, this can be material wealth, this can be Holidays, houses, lifestyle is another huge one. So constantly updating on here is what my desirable lifestyle looks like. So that is them letting you know I base myself and my success on these things. And I am letting you know this is what success is, right? So then we go, okay, well, I want to be successful. So I am what I have too. So we buy into this ego belief, and then we might emulate or imitate, that success that we see. And then we have that same lifestyle and we go, I don't like this. Why am I not enjoying this in the same way that that person's enjoying it? Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying your lifestyle. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going luxurious holidays, buying yourself stuff that you've worked hard for. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? But I always stop and ask people the question, and people don't like this question. I'm going to get a wee bit of backlash for this, but I'm prepared to take it. Would you still buy this if you couldn't post it on Instagram? Would you still enjoy this if you couldn't share it on Instagram with other people? Would this still be a beneficial experience for you if you couldn't let the outside world know about it, right? And people don't like that because that challenges the ego. That forces them to check in with the ego and say, could I go a 2-week luxurious holiday without letting people know about it, right? Could I buy myself a 5-bedroom house, a really fancy car, without letting other people know about it? That tells you if it's ego operating or if it's you just rewarding yourself with something, which is absolutely fine. The other big thing that I watch coming through for people, another ego belief, is I am what others think of me. So people very, very often will limit their abilities based on their perception of what other people think of them. And I always say to people, what you think others think of you is based entirely on what you think of yourself. So you project this is what other people will say and think about me. I just did that recently when I left my job. I thought that because I was leaving to run my own business and leaving the public sector to run my own business, that people would say, oh my God, who the hell does she think she is? She's worked here and did all her development here, and now she's going off for her own gain. Has she been hiding this from us? And has she been running the business during working hours, right? Those were all my fears. I had resounding celebration from my team when I said I was going out my own. They're so proud of me, they're so excited for me, they're so happy for me, but I was projecting all of my fears and insecurities onto them, right? So I decided that they were going to judge me for the things that I was judging myself for. So that's when we really need to check in and say, how often am I limiting what I'll do based on my assumptions of what other people would think about me? And even if people did think those things, materially, how is it impacting me? Other than me living with the thought and the fear, how is this actually impacting the decisions that I make for my own happiness, my own future? We never ever ask ourselves that.
I love it. And that is so true. And what I would think, the questions that I would ask you back are, so like, where do they come from? Like, where those thoughts about, you being like, oh, who do you think you are? Are these things that you heard as a child? Or is it thoughts that you've had about other people as they've left a business? Like, where do they come from?
I think for me, I think first you need to be willing to look at where they're coming from. Sometimes people are struggling to find the answers in themselves because they don't actually want to look. They only want to scratch the surface and they don't really want to go deeper. The answers are always within you, but you just need to be willing to look for them. I think for me, it was definitely, I used to, and when I was younger, in the beginning of my career, I used to carry quite a lot of imposter syndrome. And the profession that I work in, traditionally people do another career and then come into my profession. I was doing it the other way around. So I was one of the youngest people who in my sector, in the organisation, doing what I was doing. And so people, not deliberately, they weren't consciously doing it, but people could be quite patronising. People sometimes wouldn't really take me seriously. I wouldn't maybe get access to conversations that I would have if I were a bit older, a bit more experienced. So I think having that sort of, that feeling of imposter syndrome of this room isn't for people like me. The first team that I worked in were very, very elitist. They were all from very privileged backgrounds, and I'm not. So it was really, they all went to private school. I didn't. So there was real stark differences between the kind of person that I was and the kind of person that they were. So I think that kind of bred in a wee bit of imposter syndrome from me that I think has never really left. But I think that imposter syndrome is not an illness that you diagnose yourself with. It's just something to be aware of and question, like, is this actually just that imposter saying, like, who decides who is worthy of something, who decides who is capable of doing something? And I think it's really just about challenging where, exactly as you say, where is that belief coming from? And I think sometimes when people in the past have left the NHS, specifically in my profession, they set up their own consultancy, but then sell their services back to the NHS. And that's a bit of an ethical grey area. For someone like me, who's very ethics driven, I would be like, oh my God. So I didn't want to be considered to be one of those kinds of people, even though I won't be doing any work with the public sector. I worried that was the perception others would have, because that's the perception that I've had of other people. So that was my own judgments of others coming through to be like, oh, I'm worried about this happening with me. And I was speaking with someone in a coaching relationship who had said that they were talking about a group of people, and they said, I have nothing to relate to these people to, that they're not my kinds of people. I'm not really that interested in them. I don't like them. They're nothing like me. And exactly what they had described were all of the fears that they had of other people thinking about them. So it was exactly that same situation, where it was a projection of the judgment that they pass on others, assuming that they were going to get the same back because that's what they were putting out, and that's not the case. So this is when we have to challenge our own beliefs and perceptions and the own judgments that we pass on others and say, where is this coming from?
I just find it all like so fascinating, because think about even just that one answer to how you felt about leaving. Like, think about all of the decisions that we make every day, and obviously they're not all quite as big as that decision, but no wonder people find it hard to ask themselves these questions. Now, something that came up, because you mentioned earlier about the internal transition versus the external change. Okay, now this is something that we're very acutely aware of inside the coaching club, because we work on both the mind and the body. And I'm not here for shitty fad short-term changes. We are here for creating a healthy, beautiful lifestyle for the rest of your life, and give you the resilience and the toolboxes to handle the shit that will happen in your life. Now, we have two camps generally. We have some people who come in who can follow the habit changes, and they can start to make the changes so that their physical body changes really fucking quickly. We then also have other people who come in and they can't lock it in as much, but they're making the internal shifts before they make the external change. And then the people in camp one, sorry to go back, but they will do the external change, and then we'll start to work on the internal change from there. Do you believe there is a right or wrong way? And what do you believe is the difference to make people be in each camp? So why can some people do the external change fast from the get-go and other people can't, I suppose is what I'm asking.
So I think both camps are both transitioning and changing in the exact same way. I think that the difference is awareness. And I think the difference is where they are measuring the progress. So when I ask people, how do you feel you're progressing right now? They tell me really well, because I smashed all my gym sessions and I'm 7 pounds down and I've hit all my steps. And then I'll ask another person, how do you feel you're progressing this now? And they'll go, my sleep's so much better. I feel that my mood has improved a wee bit this week, right? That's not that one person in camp one hasn't made any internal change and that person in camp two hasn't made any physical change. It's just that they're aware of where they're making the change, and often this is based on what the motivating factor has been for them to make the change, and where they decide where the problem is, right? So as coaches, we have to be very careful that we don't come in and diagnose need, right? And diagnose problem. We have to be led by our clients to say, this is where I see my problem, right? And very often people will come in with what they think their diagnosed need is and start the work there. Very often what will happen is exactly what I'd said, where they change that part that they think needs to be changed, and then they hit a crossroads to understand, oh, both mind and body have to be in synergy here. And this is again my I think every different area of the fitness industry serves a different need, but this is where I take issue with 6, 8, 12-week transformations, is because you cannot transform a person in 12 weeks. You can change a physical thing, absolutely. You can change a psychological thing, absolutely. In 12 weeks, you can make strides towards it, but you cannot transform in that small period of time. And I think the other thing that really happens quite a lot for people is they assume that when someone has reached an outcome, that it's because they've applied the program wholly and 100%. And people buy the belief that if they apply it 100%, they will also get the same outcome at the same rate. We all have our own shit. We all have our own baggage. When I first went to my coach, I was riddled with unresolved trauma, right? I wasn't going to get a result at the same rate of time as someone who wasn't coming with unresolved trauma, because my reasons for my relationship with food were rooted over years and years and years of different challenges, right? I have friends who don't have that kind of relationship with food and can say, I'm feeling a bit chunky, I'm going to go in a calorie deficit for a few weeks, and they lose the weight, and that's that. And for me, that just was never going to work that way. So a lot of this, I think, is about supporting people to understand that depending on the size of the bag you're bringing is going to depend on how long it takes to unpack it. And sometimes it takes for us to get maybe a wee while into something to say, do you know what, actually there's more work has to be done here. So a lot of people will say to me something like, I'm just working on my mindset right now. I just can't really focus on the physical because I'm just working on my mindset. And immediately what that tells me is there's something in there that you don't want to look at, right? There's something in there that's preventing you from looking at your relationship with your body. So that's where we need to do the work. Then I got other people who say, I just want the physical. There's nothing wrong with my mindset, right? And then I say, right, okay, so there's something there that you don't want to look at either. It's just that people will go first to what they think they've diagnosed the need as. And often after a while, they make the progress and go, I think this might be a wee bit more than it needs to be. And then sometimes you do have people who just need some guidance on making a physical change, and they don't actually need anything other than that, and that's okay. And I think that the challenge of because there's so many different types of programs out there, it can be hard to know which kind of one is for you. And if you do just want to achieve a physical change, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you feel good within yourself and that you have the right mindset, good mental health, we don't need you to delve into like your childhood experience if you don't feel that it's impacting you. Do you know what I mean? It's only when it's impacting you or stopping you or highlighting something to you that you go, do you know what, I think I need to have a look at that.
And I think it's like so if we look at it from a business coaching standpoint, the first business coach I had, I believed was everything that I needed at that moment in time. Wasn't until I kind of spent a bit of time working with her that I realized actually it really wasn't. And I think we have this massive, again, self-applied pressure in the thing that we invest in, the thing that we try, like it's got to be right. But you're only going to, so it will take for you, in my opinion, potentially, to get a physical transformation, to realize you've climbed to the top of the tree that you actually didn't need to climb potentially, or you did need to climb it to then get the knowledge to realize that actually there's some other shit you want to work on. So it's again that exploration and realizing that there's nothing fucking wrong if you get a physical transformation and then you go, oh, but I'm still not happy, because again, we were going based on ego drive, because we see ourselves, I am what I have in regards to my body. I keep getting validated from people in the external world that say, you look fucking incredible, regardless of how you lost the weight. So it's giving people that permission to say, just try it, you know, just
Yeah.
give it a go. And like you say, not everyone will want to work on their mindset. Not everyone will even have the awareness that that's a problem. Like, people go, oh, I'm just lazy. Oh, I'm just, you know, I'm unable to follow a diet plan. I'm unable to do it. And it's like, well, like you've done, what's a little bit like, what is behind that? Why can't we follow? What else are we using food for? Because there's a really good quote that your relationship with food says more about your relationship with yourself than it does about food. And I do stand by that. I think it's a great one. Now, I want to keep this fairly short. So what do you believe is the biggest, you might not be able to answer this, the biggest stumbling block for people on this journey? What is the reason why people crash and burn and can't continue?
Acceptance and expectation. So people, I think, struggle to accept that you will be on this journey forever, right? And that even if you are successful and you achieve success and you feel happy, that's not going to be that way all the time. And my therapist said to me the other day, and it just really stuck with me, she was like, you are going to feel shit again. Like there are going to be times in your life again where you don't feel happy, and that's okay, because that's life. And she's spot on. So even when you have everything that you want and you feel good within yourself and you have gone through this journey, that doesn't mean that everything's plain sailing from there upward. And although you're transforming at this part in your life, you don't transform once and then never transform again, right? You evolve and change over time. Your priorities and your needs change and evolve over time. And I think that I hear people say quite a lot, like, I want to get back to the way that I was. And I say to them, you have to accept that you cannot do that, right? You cannot expect your 30-year-old self to thrive and maintain the body that you had at 18 in entirely different circumstances. So I think a huge part of it is accepting that this might not be the last time that you try to lose weight. This might not be the last time that you try to change the way that you feel about yourself and your body. Once you achieve these things, your life then becomes, so how do I maintain, nurture and protect this? It's not that you just go, fucking brilliant, that's me off now, I can eat what I like and my life's changed. And the people that I watch who maybe leave a coaching journey too soon, when they think that that's them, I'm transformed and I've achieved everything that I need to, are often the people who have the expectation that I only need to do this once and then I'm sound. I'll need to fix this one thing and then that's me, I'm cushy, I can go on my merry way and I'll be fine. And actually it's the people who stick around for a long time and go through different evolutions with the support of a coach that learn and stress test the behaviours and habits that they've created for themselves. So when we're feeling good, we don't know or believe that we will have a test again, right? Last year, when I got very, very close to my goal weight and I was feeling good and life was good and I'd been through a lot of difficulty and struggle, and I thought, that's me, I'm a new woman. And I said to my coach, I'm leaving the program this year as a client. And he went, okay, we'll see. Because he knew, you've not been stress tested. This new you hasn't been put under pressure to see if it can survive under pressure. And then last year, towards the end of the year, a shitload of pressure came and I immediately put weight back on, right? So I'm now in that phase where I know I'm back losing weight again. If I really wanted to, I could tell myself I'm back to square one, but I'm not, right? I might be back as close to where I was physically in terms of my weight, but mentally, I have a shitload of tools, skills, coping mechanisms, awareness, understanding, insights that mean that this part of the journey won't take as long and won't be anywhere as painful as the last time that I was doing it, right? Because I've got the tools that serve me. And crucially, I've learned to separate my worth from my weight. So I can look back and reflect objectively and see what went wrong here that I turned back to food for comfort and put weight on, it was this, this, and this. Okay, so these are the things that I know are crucial to me and cannot be changed for this weight to then stay off the next time. So having that stress test showed me there are still areas that you need to do some work in, right? And if you were to ask me this time last year, I was a changed woman living my new life and I was solved and all my problems were fixed, right? And if you were to tell me, by the way, you're going to put all that weight back on, you'll be back in therapy, I would never have believed you, okay? So it's a bit crucially, I had to accept that although that was difficult to take and a hard lesson to learn, if I remained ignorant to that, then I would have ended up back where I started, accepting that actually the expectations that I had for myself were not solidified enough, and that a stress test showed up actually where I still have to do the work, means that my resilience is just built even more. I'm not telling myself that I'm unworthy simply because I've gained weight, because I was able to remove the emotion and look at the facts. And because I'm operating from the place of the facts, I know what has to happen now. And I know what will likely come. And I know that I don't know and I'll never know what challenges life's going to throw at me, but where I have to do the work so that when the challenge does come, I don't go back to that same place that I went to before. So accept that the journey is a never-ending one, and know that your expectations are most likely unrealistic and will be challenged, and accept the challenge. Be willing to look at it.
Love it. And so the words I wrote down here were high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so true, because like if you look at anything, if you look at building a house or building a car, they have to be stress tested. They have to be tested time and time and time and time again. And it is that whole thing of stand the test of time, you know, learn to ebb and flow with life. I think people think, you know, I've seen quite a few people create some insane physical transformations, but then they're like a China doll, because they're like, shit, right, I can't eat out, I can't do this, I can't. And it's like, whoa, that is not life. You know, that is you micromanaging to sustain, inverted commas, sustain this. But actually it's so fucking unrealistic, because what happens when you go on holiday? What happens when you're, I don't know, parent-in-law passes, or, you know, all these things that we think when, like you did, when life's cushy, like, oh, I can fucking do this. I've got it down to a T. But it's that's like your own glass ceiling, isn't it? Your own bottleneck. So Jen, thank you so much. We're definitely going to get you in for a round 3, because these conversations are insane. And I know they'll be helping the ladies to create huge shifts mentally, and just make them realize that they're fucking human. These pressures that we see in society, on social media, you know, these ego drives and all the things that we've kind of been led to believe is right and wrong, you know. I think it will be super powerful. So thank you ever so much. Have an incredible day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.